Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the simulation. My name is Reese. Today is the 12th of October, 2025, and the title of the show is An Equal and Opposite Reaction. And I am going to keep it brief. This is not going to be a long episode today. But I believe that this is manifesting in many ways and has been in society for a long time. I think that with the culture went a certain way, and now it's kind of going back. It's kind of like having an equal and opposite reaction the other way. I think that you could say this about a lot of woke culture. There is a bit of sometimes a disgust for woke culture nowadays, whereas before it was celebrated. And the idea of equal and opposite reaction applies when you're dealing with oppression, in my opinion. So we are obviously we are effectively a colony, right? The UK is a colony of the global cult, right? We're talking about America is a colony, most of the world, right? They have got most of the world under wraps at this point. Some people say China, some people don't. I do believe Russia and all of Europe. And we are effectively a colony of the New World Order, of the global cult, right? We have had our institutions seized, our media seized, our freedom seized, our ability to talk, our ability to, just today in Surrey, a preacher of Christianity was arrested by, was threatened with arrest by Surrey police. And so our institutions have been dispossessed from us, our financial system, the financial system, the media, and not only that, but our culture, because we are losing possession of our culture. It's being directly pushed away, and it's being directly stomped on. You could argue by people getting arrested for preaching Christian teachings. But you've also got enclaves in this country like Bradford and Birmingham and Manchester and London and many places in this country which are effectively foreign cities, foreign locations, and they belong to foreign people. There are also foreign, certain people only areas in this country. And it would appear that, some people say that this is happening because of colonization, right? But I don't think that that's actually true. I don't believe that it's karmic. I don't believe that, we must accept millions and millions and millions of people because of our Commonwealth or anything like that. But it is almost an equal and opposite reaction, because we had a lot of land. We had, quite a lot of space. We had, think about the land that we had, right? Especially and also Europe. And now we have nothing. We've gone down to an island. We lost the Chagos Islands. We have, the countryside in the UK. We don't have the cities. So the equal and opposite reaction happened to our colonization. So my logic is, if we're going to dispossess the people who own the financial systems, the people who are flooding us with people from the third world, the people who are printing money, the people who are lying and propagandizing us via the mainstream media, just the media in general and social media, then we need to have a colonial mentality. We need to have the mentality of, we want power. The people need to want power. They need to want it relentlessly in order to, reject the oppression wholesale, in order to actually dispossess them and regain possession. We need to have basically a colonial mentality. We want more. We will not accept this. We will take back our cities. We will take back our institutions. We will take back our media. It will be ours. It will be the people, right? And, we could talk about, this idea of going into the Commonwealth, or other countries, like maybe if you went to Somalia and you said, because Somalia is a failed state, and it's like, most people can agree that I think, and to an extent, either way, even if you don't agree with this, you would have to say that to an extent it is true that the British during the colonial days did make beneficial change to third world countries, like for example Rhodesia and others, right? And so there is a potential negotiation to be had, right, with these countries that are failed states. Maybe this is a pie in the sky idea, but I would say that there is a potential negotiation that you could have, which is allow us to help you. You know, you have resources that you are unable to extract. You have the potential to have a good water supply, you have the potential to be the breadbasket of the entire continent if you let us help you. That could be a negotiation. Now, it depends on who is involved in the Somali government, or whoever runs Somalia. So, you know, that's going to be borderline pie in the sky. But the point is, right, is that the colonial mindset is needed in order to take back the power. So, this links to vanguardism. Vanguardism, you know, you need an idea very extreme. You need to galvanize the masses. This is a communist Russian idea, but it's an idea where, you know, you can galvanize people, galvanize political support, and it's an extreme idea. It's an elitist idea, but it's one that is a idea that is it will penetrate the media, right? It is one that is extreme, but it has what is necessary. It has the power hungry mentality, right? And so it's kind of like the most extreme end point of your mission, right? The most extreme end point of what I'm talking about is, you know, because the equal and opposite reaction, that's what we're talking about, right? So the most extreme point of that would be literally colonizing countries. It would be taking over other countries, and it would be having more land. It'd be taking their resources, right? That's the most extreme point. That's the furthest point. But the general idea would be, we want power. We need power because we have been dispossessed of our power. So I think a movement, and it has to be international, right? This has to be an international movement. This has to be this is a vision that needs to be shared by Australia, by Canada, all of European countries, America. The people want the power. The people of the countries, they want their land back in their countries that they've lost, that they've been dispossessed of. They want the institutions back. They want the media back. That mentality needs to be instilled in people all across the world, because the ones who are dictating to us have that exact mentality, and the reason that's why they dictate to us, it isn't because they're better than us. A lot of the time it's because of, you know, family connections. It goes back generations. It's generational power, generational wealth. It's a intergenerational agenda, right, to further the small group of people and further the amount of power and money that the small group of people who run the world do have. But they are hungry for the power. They want the power. They need the power to survive. Think about Zionism. Zionism, you know, requires the power-hungry mentality to exist, because you need to colonize, you need to establish a state, and it is successful. I don't agree with it, but it is successful. People compare this all the time. It is, whether or not what your opinions are about that situation. The Israelis are succeeding currently with establishing Greater Israel and their prophecy, their prophetic idea, whatever they want to happen. Their flooding of mass immigration into the West. Meanwhile, their taking of an ethno-state in Palestine. They are being successful because they are power hungry and they have the colonial mindset. It's not a coincidence. You know, people talk about the Austrian painter, right? And, you know, again, whatever you think about the Austrian painter, he was a colonial, power-hungry individual. He was successful because he demanded power. He was, ambitious, extremely. He wanted to take over, but people say he did. People say he didn't, but he by his actions he did, right? Clearly. So it's so important, right? It's so important to have this mentality, right? To have this people, power with the people mentality. This idea of being power hungry and restoring the sovereignty of your institutions, towards the British, towards our people, towards the common white people, or not even the common white people, the common Europeans, the common people who have been born here, who have been reasonably integrated here. The common man of today needs to develop a power-hungry mentality, right? Because otherwise you cannot have a resistance to the oppression that you see. You cannot have, because it's an equal and opposite force that will take you. Either there is no resistance to the current enslavement and oppression of the world and humanity, or the resistance is in the form of power-hungry, people with the colonial mindset of taking back their land. And the furthest logical extension is taking more land and taking ownership, right? That's the only way. Point again, Zionism, right? Zionism is a perfect testament of that. Now, it's not to say that I am calling for the UK and us to colonize lands, right? That's not what I'm saying. Because that is the furthest, most extreme point of the power-hungry colonial mindset position. It's the furthest point. And it's not the point that I ascribe myself to. But you need to have the beginning mentality. So that was kind of what I wanted to speak about. I think that this is extremely important, right? Because we've got a lot of people that want to make movements and they want to make a change, right? And I am one of them. And some people are pessimistic. And some people are not pessimistic, right? Some people are optimistic. But rarely, if ever, do I see people, say this rhetoric, right? This desire to have power, because we don't have that, and that's what we need. So I think that this needs to be introduced into the conversation to an extent. As I say, you need to have it where you're not, you're not actually, your position is not to have global domination, right? That's actually not what your position is. Your position is to just have more power than you do currently. It's to it's like a political movement centered around power, right? Centered around infiltrating the institutions, the establishment, creating new ones, creating new society, right? There needs to be some sort of, almost third, like literally, like where people start forming new societies, where you'll trade with one another, you'll keep the money in a certain area, in a certain, do you know what I mean? Like you look out for each other, you build your wealth, like there's something that I've noticed where it's like expected that the children leave the house and they go and they, one child goes and pays a mortgage in one house, another child pays a mortgage in another house, third child pays a mortgage in another house, right? Does that benefit the family? Does that benefit the banks, right? It benefits the banks, right? What makes more sense is to create wealth within the household, right? Your children stay with you whilst they're adults, whilst they're generating wealth, and they're not giving money to a bank. So I feel like this is a bit of a mentality that's another part of the mentality. But you've got, and because what I see a lot of, right, is people focusing on immigration, right? This is what my whole thing here is kind of centered, partly to do with this as well. People talk about immigration a lot. I've seen people say, if we had an ethno state, everything would be fine, right? But immigration is a problem, right? We are being replaced. It's being done intentionally. We are being invaded, right, from the shores. We need to, millions must go, right? This is true. All of this is true. But right, there are so many other things. There is weather manipulation. There is there is AI. There is the depopulation. Technocratic AI agenda, smart cities. There is the fact that our food is poison. There is just multiple layers to this. Our banks, all of our institutions are just foreign owned, right? We do not, and again, it all kind of goes back to that power, right? If we had power, there wouldn't be weather manipulation. If we had power, the whole banking system wouldn't work this way. If we had power, the media wouldn't work this way. The media would be fair, right? And it would talk. It would have a free marketplace of ideas. The media. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine having a media with a free marketplace of ideas? We can have that. The people just need to have the power. And so that point there is like, people harp on immigration, right? But I do believe that if you harp on immigration too much, and you don't think about the other layers to the simulation, right? You are a bit of a propagandist at that point, whether you know knowingly or not, knowingly or unknowingly. If you are harping on one thing and not, as far as like the political, the scene, the scene of the world, if you intentionally omit things, right, or rather if you just push one narrative only, then you are basically a propagandist. So this is another thing that needs to happen, is that people need to start addressing the array of concerns. Because imagine, and it frustrates me, right? A perfect example of this is a perfect example. This is what frustrates me, right? Is that Rupert Lowe, I believed Rupert Lowe was sincere for a long time, but maybe he is, right? But Rupert Lowe could do so much for the awakening of the masses if he talked about other things that weren't just immigration. I seriously mean it. He could talk about the biggest problems that we have that go alongside immigration, but it seems that it is only about that one thing. Obviously, he does say other things. Like, I think he has talked about the climate change thing, and he's talked, there are certain things, but it is extremely immigration centered, right? I would argue that weather manipulation is a massive problem. A massive problem. I would argue that no one in this country wants to be sprayed by chemicals. And so this is clearly a big problem, and it needs to change. It's going to make the land uninhabitable. So we need these politicians to be talking about that as well. We need them to start shifting the Overton window towards those types of conversations. And we need these people to instill the feeling of wanting power relentlessly. Relentless. Just constantly, we want more power with the people. We want to be influential in the institutions. We want to have control. So and if you bring all that back to the colonial mentality, it all goes back to the colonial mentality, because you want to, because you are not just looking to deport people. You don't need to deport people in order to have colonization. Like if you have power, right, and you have projects that you want to undertake that might be considered that you're a colonist, then maybe your foreign citizens can actually get on board with that because it's going to benefit them. You'd be surprised how much, how people's ability to virtue signal will disappear when you tell them that they can benefit from it. I'm sure that most people in this country, if we were engaging in, if we were engaging in, the subjugation of territories without mass murder, right? And it benefited the citizens, and it benefited the citizens of the country that we were subjugating. I'm sure that they would throw all of their virtue signaling out the window because they are benefiting. So they can get on board with that mentality. Especially people who are Muslim. Because what would we know about Islam? Well, yeah, so So I think that this needs to be more popular. Basically, yeah, that's it, and it's necessary. It's a bullet, as Jonathan Bowden said, right? The fight back to the system needs to be with a sharp bullet. It needs to be penetrable. It needs to be a mindset that is vigorous, right? That's not what he said, but he said the bit about the bullet, right? It cannot be a blunt bullet. It needs to be a sharp one. That is a sharp bullet. You can't deny that. So that's what I wanted to say about that. I wanted to say that whilst it was fresh in my mind. There was another thing, right, which kind of links to the subject, which is, so, well, I was speaking about it before, right, but I've just seen this story. If you want to take a look at scene 3, why has it done that then? Probably because of that. Yeah. No. I don't know. What about this? Oh, right. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so basically, right, just take a look at this, yeah. It's not really funny, it's sad. It is sad, right? So, an unidentified man desecrated on the altar of the confession at St. Peter's Basilica around 9:30 a.m. during mass. And this is just they are literally shitting on our culture. I'm pretty sure I said that earlier. They're shitting on it. Like this is obviously the Vatican, right? But it's like, this is what's happening to our culture. This is the subjugation of our culture. This is our culture. We are losing it. Like, this is actually, like, sad to see. It's intentional. Like, this is just, it's all been done by design, right? They must eradicate your culture. And in order to do that, they must make you ashamed of your culture. Because if they want to eradicate your culture, it's a lot easier when you have self-hating people, right? But it's like, we have descended so far, right? We've descended so far into a society that just tolerates the worst things and just moves on, just accepts it, and just doesn't push back. And that's why we have such a problem. It links to what I'm saying. It's like the people that we are, like the people that make up the country, these things happen to us, and we just take it. We just take it. If there is no equal and opposite reaction, then we just are gonna keep taking it. If there needs to be some sort of, like, shared view that we cannot tolerate this shit. Like, actually, like, we cannot tolerate our culture being disrespected. Like, we need to actually make that a normal political view. We need to shift that Overton window. We will not have our culture get desecrated on. We do not want that. And it just keeps happening because we just allow it. Our mentality is so frail, and it's so nonchalant, right? It's like, yeah, well, there are bad people and they do bad things. It's like, no, this must leave a sour taste in your mouth. This must annoy you. This must unite you with your next person, right? It's where you can say, what the fuck is going on in our country? What is going on in our society? They are pissing on our culture. And it's like, yeah, so, and look, we can go into the story, right? But the thing is that I think it's just gonna annoy me. I can't even really find an article that's in English, so that kind of tells you a lot. Yeah. Why is it just giving me, I don't know why it's giving me all foreign articles, but what is this guy gonna get as our punishment for this? Because this is and as it says, actually, it says in the article, this is not an isolated case. Italian Catholic and conservative media point out, on the 7th of February 2025, a man of Romanian origin also managed to bypass the security cordon without being stopped, climbed onto the altar, and threw 6 candelabra, my bad, to the ground, severely damaging them. He even had time to remove, it's like, and then the similar thing happened on June the 1st, 2023. A completely naked 30-year-old with the words "Save Children of Ukraine" written on his back. Children of Ukraine. That's interesting. That's very interesting. It's got Ukrainian links. Christian culture getting defecated by someone who's pro-Ukraine. It does make you think. It does make you question it. It does make you think if you're just living in a simulation. But yeah, we must. The main point of this video, the main point of this episode, is to say that we must apply an equal and opposite force to the oppression that we have been put under, if there is any chance at all of getting our shit back. Right. The only way is an equal and opposite force. The equal and opposite force to being colonized and being dictated to and being oppressed is to be power hungry and relentless in your pursuit of taking back your country, taking back your institutions, your media, your culture, your ethnicity. Even our ethnicity, we are losing. We literally are. We are literally losing our ethnicity. So we need to be relentless in the pushback. And I agree with people when they say that we can't just have sensible rhetoric, because we need to push for total remigration. I agree with the first half. I don't agree with the second half, because if anything, total remigration is sensible rhetoric. I mean, it's not going to happen, but it's like, it is technically a lot more sensible than the idea of conquest and the idea of being power hungry. So that's it. I think, to be fair, the show, it's been a fairly slow news time. Like, there's not been anything too crazy. Obviously, there was the whole situation with the guy who got arrested for preaching Christianity in Guildford. Another example of culture being stepped on. And this is clearly by design. It's not just happening. This is what I mean. A Christian man was arrested in Guildford in Surrey, like, for preaching the Bible. And a man pissed on, in at the Vatican, right? Our culture is being mocked, ridiculed relentlessly all the time. Then the pushback to that needs to be equal and opposite. So yeah, and it's not about nationalism. I did consider myself to be a nationalist, but this whole thing, it isn't about nationalism. It's about humanism. It's about being a human. It's about being a lot of the time it is white. It's about being European. We are white Europeans. Our culture is being pissed on, and we're being replaced, and we're being depopulated. We're being oppressed. The same does apply for the rest of humanity, but you are going to identify with people similar to you. So whilst whilst there are identity parts to it, it is broadly a humanist movement, and the humanist movement is international, mate. It's not about nationalism. It's not about England. It's about humanity broadly, but then slightly less broadly, it's about Western nations. Christianity, and I'm not a Christian, but it is about Christianity, and it is about our ethnicity and our people, right? But that's it. I do hope you've enjoyed the episode. This episode, the second episode of the simulation. If you have, then yeah, I'd appreciate it if you left a like. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. And if you think that your mate might like this podcast, then maybe go ahead and share it with him or her or they them. No, but yeah, no, I appreciate everybody. I'm gonna go live. If you are watching live, then I'm gonna be going live on TikTok right now. So yeah, hope you enjoy that. Hopefully that's good. And yeah, chat to you in a bit. Hope you've enjoyed, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Maybe it'll be tomorrow, maybe it won't be, but we'll see. I'll try and let you know. Anyway, take care.